Hello everybody, welcome back. DCs today. So in this video I'm going to show you how I carve the necks. Now then, the first thing I need to do is work out exactly how deep I'm going to carve this neck. So I know that I want to carve to around 21mm, 21.5mm for my initial carve, and I'm just going to use my micrometer to work out exactly how thick my fretboard is in the middle. So about 4mm. So now that I know that my fretboard is about 4mm thick, I'm just going to make a little mark from the bottom of the fretboard. And that's going to give me my 17.5mm mahogany thickness. Is that line? There it is. And I'm going to draw a line along there. So now that I've got this line, that tells me how deep I can carve to. And I'm going to start my volute, something like that, just inside the nut. And I don't know what possessed me to leave quite so much waste on here, so I'll probably just use the spindle sander to get rid of that before I actually start carving the thing. Let's go. So now that I've just removed a load of waste material here, I'm going to work out where the heel's going to go. So I've just basically drawn a line where the body joins the neck, and I can figure out how I'm going to shape the heel. Get out. So now I know where the neck joins the body, I can work out what I'm going to do with regards to shaping the heel. So where are we? 12, 15, 17, 19. So I'm thinking I'm going to start the heel on the 18th fret, just here, and then curve up to the 21st. Small and round. Sounds like me. There we go. Something round to draw around, that'll give me a nice even curve. So that there is basically the shape of the heel. So now that I've got a nice curve, I'll just rough that shape in with a gouge. Fairly quick and easy to do. I like gouges, they just remove a lot of material cleanly, quickly. Just got to be careful of grain direction, obviously. And also carving in the middle here can be risky. You don't want to go down into the rest of the neck. That would cause suffering. Like that. There we go, I've just roughed it out to the line. That'll do for now. I shall just come back and finalise that really with a rasp. Now then, I've drawn some facet lines on here. Hopefully the camera can see them. So there's a centre line and there's two outside lines as well. Now these outside lines, they don't go parallel with the neck taper. They go parallel with the centre line. And the idea of that is, so I want the neck nice and round at this end for playing chords. And rather than having the sort of the same round neck shape as we go up the neck, by having these parallel facet lines here and following those, I can make the neck more flat at this end, and that will then in turn make the neck a bit thinner at this end, or feel thinner anyway. And that should just make the neck a bit more comfortable for sweep picking, all that kind of thing, you know, when you're bringing your thumb right up to here and doing all that stuff. So there are various tools that you can use for this. I think my very first neck, first two necks, I just used a £5 rasp from Screwfix. Does the job. Shinto rasp, I used that for several instruments. They're pretty good. I think they're probably the most popular one. But more recently I've started using microplanes. I find that they remove material very quickly. Like the Shinto rasp, they come in various different fine cuts. This is a medium, this is a fine, and I just find these remove material very quickly, and they leave quite a nice finish as well. It's nicer to hold than the Shinto rasp. You know, if you're holding it like this, you either end up cutting your skin or wear gloves. So one of these, and I'm just going to use my facet lines to rough in the shape. Another thing I like about these is these tiny little planes, they go around the side as well. So whereas these, they don't cut on the side, these will also cut on the side. So although this is flat, it'll also do a little bit of cutting on as it works up towards the headstock as well. So I just find them they become a bit easier to tidy up around this end. I've actually checked how my depth looks, so look. $25 stacks. So now that initial facet's in, what I now do is I just start rounding it over, working my way up towards the fretboard, trying not to actually get quite to the fretboard, because I don't want to carve the underside of the fretboard. And then I shall start rounding over towards the centre line as well. Now I've got stacks of material up this end, it's like 25mm, and I've got about 24mm, 23mm at this end, so I need to be a bit more careful when I'm reaching the centre here than when I'm up here. But I'm essentially just rounding it over, and then I'll take it out the clamps, have a feel, see what I think, and then just start adjusting it to suit really. The only downside to these is quite often they get clogged up at the back here. There you go. Right, I think what I'll do now is I'll kind of leave this as is, and I'll start working on shaping the headstock. And for that I like the little Iwasaki half round file. This is one from Crimson, you can probably tell by the handle. These are great. I have a bigger one as well, which I often use for getting that kind of final round shape along the shaft, but these ones are perfect for shaping the headstock. The only thing to watch out for with these is if you go against the grain, it can cause quite a lot of tear out. They're great with the grain, but against the grain they can be fairly horrendous. Only 3.5. As I get closer to my final dimension, I'm becoming less vicious as I go. Because these things, although they're very small, they can be quite brutal. They can remove a lot of material very quickly. Now here's a tool I like. This just gives me my neck profile, what it looks like, because it's quite good for telling you how symmetrical your curve is. So I don't know if you can see, I've got ever such a slight slant over, which way did I go? This way. Over this way than I have over this way, so it's almost, well, you can see that it's almost like my center of the neck is more like here than here. So that just means I need to take a little bit more off around there, I think. Maybe. It's pretty close actually. It's not far off. But this is ideal if you want to copy the profile of an existing neck, then it's the best tool for it. In fact, you can take your shape of your existing neck. This is just soft plastic, so it's not going to damage your guitar. And then you could then draw around that and cut out some cardboard templates or something. But we're just going by feel on this one. Cool. Now, so it's pretty much where I want it. It's slightly over dimensioned, but I'll leave it there for now while I shape the rest of it. You might wonder why I kind of took some off here, took some off here, now I'm going back to taking off here. I remember my art teacher at school, Mr. Spring, was telling me that a sculptor never just works in one area alone. He'll always take, he'll chip a little bit off of this bit and then chip a little bit off of this bit and then a little bit off of this side, and especially if you're going for any kind of symmetry, then you can't really just go hell for leather on one side and then expect the other side to look exactly the same. You've got to kind of just take a little bit of material away from all areas until eventually you get to the shape you're looking for. Now then, this area of the neck is a bit more delicate now because it's closer to final dimensions. Obviously you've got the truss rod in there, so I've just got 2 clamps on it and then a bit of leather underneath, and I haven't got it done up super tight, otherwise we might be having a visit from Mr. Truss Rod. Again, for shaping the hair like this little one, it's just a lot of control over such a small tool. Now I'm carving against the grain, so I need to be careful that this could quite easily just pull a chunk off here, and that would be quite upsetting. Now then, so I've got this hump here, where's my low spot, which is sort of close to my final dimension there, and then this area is higher, and my preferred tool for getting rid of that is just this is the bigger half wound Iwasaki, and with that I can basically just take long strokes and it takes off so much material, and it's not dust, it's fine shavings, and because I'm going down the shaft of the neck as opposed to across it, I'm getting a much smoother line going down here. Otherwise it would be sort of really like this. I mean, it will be uneven anyway because it's hand tools, it always is, but it's much less so. And I just kind of roll the neck over as I go, and that gives me a nice even roundness as I go. And obviously I'm bearing in mind that I'm trying to keep it flatter here and rounder here. It's such a nicer way to carve than conventional rasps. There's no actual dust to breathe in. It's just even the stuff from the microplane is not dust. It's just small shavings. don't even know why this is in my way. I don't need it anymore. I don't think I did use it at all. So I've still got this hump here, and it's gradually getting lower, and I need to be a bit careful at this end, because this end sort of, it slopes down very gradually, so it's quite easy to go down into that slope and go too deep, whereas here it's quite steep, so I can see it clearly. It's a lot closer. Still got a little bit of a bump here, but it's really just got to keep going until we're there. And then I'll start evening it out. .8. 22, there you go. You know what, I'm getting fed up with this. Let's just go something a bit more abrasive, sort of remove a bit more material quickly. There we go. These things are great. I mean, this is a fine one, and it just removes so much material, and it leaves the surface so smooth as well. Great little tool. That looks quite close here now, actually. And it's just a bit fatter here. You'll notice that I don't have any one particular favourite tool for this job. I mean, I like to think I do, but ultimately when I'm doing any kind of carving, if I find I'm not making so much progress, then I'll just pick up another tool and see how I go with it. So it's kind of handy to have a few different carving tools lying around, because you just got to kind of feel comfortable with what you're doing. And we look in. It's close. There's a little bit of kind of lumps and bumps in it like this. I mean, those lumps and bumps are quite easy to get out, but I'll just get it as close as I can with these files first. So it's a bit higher there. Now then, so I've drawn some pencil lines all along here. And the idea of that is when I go to sand it, it's going to tell me where my low spots are. So essentially what's happening, and I'm obviously over exaggerating, but the shape of the neck is doing this. And it could be doing that more so on the top than it is on the side. On the side it might be flatter, or it might be more uneven on the side. So the best way I find to deal with that is to draw these pencil lines along here, and then you could use a beam with sandpaper like this. Of course, the trouble with a beam is it's not necessarily going to give you a perfect round. And in fact, you might end up putting a flat spot in here, taking too much from one place, and then so you may alleviate this, but you may end up with this as it goes round. So I like to use a radius beam with some just some 80 grit sandpaper on it, and because obviously I've got a beam with a curve in it, it's easier to keep a curve. So I just sand up and down the neck until my pencil lines disappear. Now this beam is an aluminium beam, so I need to be a bit careful when I get down to the ends here. In an ideal world you'd have a wooden beam, and then you could, if you've got a spindle sand or something, just knock the edges off, so it's going to do less damage at each end, but I just don't quite make it up to each end. And I've got, this is some fairly heavy duty sandpaper, and I've just got it overlapping, so when I get to here, you know, it just starts to run up the heel, and the same with the volute, so it's less of an issue. And then it's the same as the carving, I just kind of roll the neck around as I'm going, and then I'm putting in a nice even curve into it. So now I'm starting to see my high spots and my low spots appearing from the pencil lines by what's disappearing and what isn't. I've just got my overhead spotlight on now, and that's highlighting where my high and low spots are, because I can see some shadows. And as you move the light around, see if I can achieve this on camera. Probably not. As I move the light around, the shadows move around, and I can see where those low spots are. And I might get a little scraper in there actually. What have we got? These will probably work quite nicely. The trick with a scraper when doing this kind of carving is do not scrape in that direction, because you're just scraping in the opposite direction towards the grain, and that's just going to basically just make a mess. So scraping away from the grain, or downhill, I always like to think, always scrape downhill if you can. It's a bit like routing. Routing downhill is safer than uphill. Now I want to round this top over nicely, but I've got very conscious of this is where my neck joins the body, so if I'm rounding, I don't really want to round too close to this if I can help it. I'm better off gluing the neck in and then rounding these edges over. Now these concave scrapers are really good for this kind of thing, but you have to be really careful with them, because obviously concave, they have a point here, and I've rounded these off slightly, but you can still end up, if you go too far over, you can put a massive great big gouge in there, and you have to do an awful lot of sanding to get those out. So carefully. Tidy this area up here too. Really, I'm just kind of trying to blend the rounding into this flat area of the tenon here. I want it to look fairly seamless if I can. Hello! Come in! Hello! Hello.
What are you doing?
I'm doing some filming and working on this guitar. What are you doing?
Here.
You're here, are you?
Can I have a big kiss?
Can you have a big kiss? Of course you can. I think we might be onto sanding. Of course, I've pretty much sanded all this with 80 grit, so I should really just be able to go on to 120 and get these areas all finished off nicely. or 150 because I haven't got any 120. Now I've seen lots of videos of people with sort of like a big sheet of paper, and they'll just have this in a clamp and then have it basically doing that all up and down. I don't really like doing that because then I'm sanding in the opposite direction of the grain, and where possible I always try and sand in the direction of the grain. Whether that's the right or wrong technique I don't know, but it's just how I prefer doing it. This is just a bit of dowel with some leather around it, and I find wrapping sandpaper around that works quite nicely for sanding in these slopes here. Just makes it a bit easier to control the sandpaper as well. I just got to make sure this heel is nice and consistently round. In fact, where is he? Yeah, it's pretty close. Starting to look like a guitar. Ooh. Final touches. Right guys, thanks for watching. If you've got any questions on why I do the things I do, I don't think anybody knows the answer to that question, but fire it in the comments below. Thanks to everybody who's subscribed lately, and I'll see you in the next video.